Oh my god. What the fuck is happening right now? Oh, this is the best day of my life.
I like going down the pond chasing bluegills with dummy cats.
And welcome to the Chumming Up Podcast, the fishing, spearfishing and ocean adventure podcast that freezes its tits off in Alaska to get the good guests. I am Squirly, and with me is my first USA, nearly missed a letter, guest, the great Ben Peterson, professional red salmon fisherman and comedian. How you going, big horse?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Nah, thanks for coming on. You're here for the comedy festival that is taking place in Anchorage. We've been on a few shows together. You're also a professional salmon fisherman.
Yep.
So I want to get into that, but before we get to that part, I got a few questions that might not have anything to do with fishing.
Great.
Yeah. So, while I was in my Uber, right, the Uber driver told me that the number one crime in Anchorage is rape.
Yeah, I'd believe it.
Really?
Yeah,
her exact words were, the number one crime here is rape, but don't get any ideas.
your driver told you this.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like, unprompted.
That's pretty Alaskan.
Yeah, well, I was like, imagine if that was, like, I didn't have any ideas, but imagine if that's all it took.
Yeah.
You know, like, just the littlest bit of peer pressure where she's just like, everyone else is doing it.
Yeah.
Who am I to say no? Sounds like Vic.
Just because you see other people doing it doesn't mean it's okay for you to do it.
But it seems, surely it can't be the number one.
It can't be the number one.
Like, unless people here are like, you know, I'll rape someone, but I'm not going to steal a pack of gum from
No, God, no.
a chain store.
We have some values.
Yeah. Like, sure, so maybe it's the highest here. Maybe that's...
We do have very high rates of some like violent crime like that. There's also a lot of like high rates of gang violence. But part of it is that it's like a per capita kind of thing. You know, we're a relatively small place, so I think it shines as a part of that. But also, it's a really dark place in the winter, literally dark, like without a lot of sunlight, and I think that has a mental effect on people and probably drives crime rates up a little bit there. It's also really cold.
Yeah.
And you don't.
I suppose
Being cold doesn't bring out the best in people usually.
Nah.
But.
Well, I suppose also being dark, it's like for longer in the day, it's probably more time for a rapist to rape.
True.
Too.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. There you go.
Yeah, the alleyways get dark at like 3 p.m. in the winter. So
Yeah, right. So, yeah, it's a bit like fishing. You know, you got to find the fish in the locations that suit them. So if you were trying to catch rapists, you would fish for them in dark places.
Yeah, you just
Or
get,
places that stay
it's all
dark.
about environment, you know. You got to know the conditions.
There you go. It's good to learn. We'll get into the fishing now.
I should say I've never raped, by the way. I want to be clear that like I've not.
Well, that was my next question.
Okay.
That's actually the second question I ask all of our guests.
Great.
You know, just have you raped before? No. Do you live in Anchorage or you live?
I do. Yep.
Yeah. How long?
Basically, I mean, I was born and raised here.
Yep.
And then I went to school in Colorado, so I lived there for 4 years. And then since then, I've done a little bit of traveling, but I basically lived in Anchorage since then as well. So I'm a lifer.
Yeah. Okay. Enjoy it, or
I do. Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a cool place. The winters are tough. I don't like being cold. Like I'm not built for the cold, even though I, have experienced it my whole life.
Yeah. I know the feeling.
So I'm always dreaming of living in a different, warmer place. But I think Anchorage is a really cool city. I like the art scene here a lot.
Yep.
It's a beautiful place, and Anchorage is the size of city that I really like. It's about 300,000 people, and there's always stuff to do, and nothing feels too repetitive. But it's also not difficult to get around.
Yep.
It's really nice.
Yeah. I've noticed that because I'm obviously not built for the cold either. I think it's a skinny guy problem.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and then I was thinking because you do see a lot of skinny people in Anchorage, but most of them are the meth heads. And
That'll take the weight off.
I thought that too. I was like, it's because their methods that they're skinny, but maybe because they're skinny, they can't handle the cold.
They got to do the
You
meth
need
to
do
stay
the
warm.
meth.
You know,
It's
I've
like
never tried that, but it's a good idea.
chicken or egg.
Yeah.
You know, like, does it warm me up a bit? I don't know.
You know, I actually, so some years ago, I took a trip to Russia, and I rode the train from east to west across the whole country.
Yep.
And I did it in the winter because I just thought that was like, to me, that's like the time to go to Russia is in the winter. It's just like a winter place to me.
Say it proper.
And because I was doing it at that time and doing it in that direction, I was one of the few tourists on the train. It was mostly like business people who are Russian, who were, you know, traveling for work, and there was a lot of like military guys. There's a mandatory, I think, 2 years of military service when you're 18 or something.
Yep.
So there's a lot of guys who were like finishing their service and going home.
Yeah,
So there were not many non-Russians on the train, but some of the few people that I met who were not from there were I met this Australian couple, and we just spent a day like sharing our, like, they told me all about Australia and I told them all about Alaska, and like on this trip they were probably in their late 40s or 50s or something, and they had never seen snow before that trip in Russia. They'd gone like their whole lives without seeing it, and I was like, no, it's Alaska, it's all over the place.
Well,
like,
that's
I told
the same as me. I'd
Yeah.
never seen it. Yeah.
are you tripping out about it? Like,
Oh yeah, it's insane. Like even, I mean, like the snow that's getting swept up off the streets where I was here, sort of thing. Like when I first came here, it's just, you know, nothing to anyone else. But
and
now
there's really
insane.
not, like, there's a surprisingly low amount of snow right now. We had a very warm winter in Anchorage, so
yeah, that's what everyone's
normally
been
there'd be
saying.
more.
Yep. And then coming back to the fishing, so you're a professional fisherman that fishes with nets for red salmon. One, how'd you get into it?
I didn't have a choice. I was actually born into it. So my dad, who's from Minnesota, he moved to Alaska when he graduated college because he knew he wanted to be involved in the wilderness scene here. He became a hunting guide ultimately, but he moved here to be a pilot. What they call a bush pilot. Do they call it that in Australia? Bush pilot?
Probably.
Okay, it's like the, you know, our wilderness. We call it the bush.
Yep.
So he flew up. He moved here and he got his pilot's license and he was flying around and moved into hunting from there. And a lot of professional hunters here will also pick up fishing as like a secondary gig because the schedules mesh really well. There's a spring hunting season and a fall hunting season, and then in the summer you can fish.
Yep.
So that's how he built his year, and he started fishing in the 80s, and I was born in 93. So I started going out to Bristol Bay where our fishing area is. I've been going there since before I was born. My mom was pregnant out there with me in 93.
Yep.
And I've gone out there every year since then, and I started working on the boat when I was 12 or 13.
Yep.
And yeah, every year since then I've been going out there, and as of the last 6 years or so, I run the boat, and my dad just stays on shore because he can't get around very well. So.
Yep. Yeah. How much is it? So go into how you guys fish now, and then how that's changed through those years. Has it sort of been the same with you? You were telling me about the quotas, sort of how that sort of stuff works.
Sure.
Has that changed a lot through that time?
Let me think about what's changed. The basic fishing process has been the same.
Yep.
As long as I can remember, which is we fish in a style called set netting. And there's set netting and drift netting. They both use the same kind of nets, which is a gill net. It's supposed to catch the fish. They like swim through it, and it's just a little smaller than their body size, so they can kind of swim through it, and it catches it around their gills, or it kind of squeezes their body a little bit.
Yep.
And they caught in it that way. And then set netting is the style where you have a screw anchor on the beach somewhere, and one end of your net is affixed to that screw anchor, and in theory that's never going anywhere because it's a like 6-foot pole-shaped anchor that's dug into the ground.
Yep.
And you attach your net to that end, and then at the other end of your net, which is 300 feet of net, you have an anchor that you can pick up and move around out in the water, and you stretch that out into. We're fishing at the mouth of a river, the Ugashik River, where it empties into Bristol Bay.
Yep.
And you stretch the net out at the beginning of your fishing period. Usually you're doing that close to low tide. And so some of your net is going to be out of the water at that point, and you fish for about 12 hours usually. And over that time, the tide comes in. Your net definitely gets completely wet in that time. Tide goes back out and might get a little dry again. But as the tide's coming in, the fish are starting to swim upstream and then get caught in there. So all of that has been basically the same. To pick the fish, you leave the net in the water, and you drive up to it with your skiff, and you pull the net up over the bow of the boat, and you center it so it's stretched across the middle of the boat. And then you can pull yourself back and forth along the net, and you just pull the fish out of the net and throw them in your bags.
Yep.
All that's been basically the same. I think the primary thing I can think of that's changed, well, two things. One is technology. A lot of people will use stuff like hydraulic power rollers to help move your boat along the net because it can get difficult sometimes.
Yep.
We do it the old school way where you just have like rollers that are free spinning with an axle. And then some people have tried like other kinds of innovations that don't usually work out. People are just trying to like rig up stuff where you can like invent an arm that can lift the net up over the bow of your boat, but the pressure on it is really intense. So nobody's figured out how to like overcome the leverage problems that it takes to do that. You just have to use manpower to pull that thing up, and it can be pretty heavy on a busy day.
Yep. And then, so the quota system that you've got now, so you were explaining your fisheries department, or what do you...
So it's not exactly a quota system. The Department of Fish and Game in Alaska,
Yep.
they try to regulate the fishery in such a way that it keeps the salmon population stable.
Yep.
And if they didn't do that, then the salmon would naturally go through this big boom and bust cycle where a bunch of fish go upriver and spawn, the population grows over time, but then they reach a point where there's not enough food to sustain the population of that size, and there's a big die-off, and then you'll have a really small run of fish for some generations and it has to build itself back up. So that's kind of the natural cycle. But with fishing, you can catch a certain percentage of the fish that are going upriver, and if they can strike a certain, they've like calculate. I mean, I don't know how accurate their estimations are in terms of how the model plays out, but they think they know, like, if this number of fish go upriver, then the young salmon that they create will have like exactly the right amount of food to have a consistent population going forward that keeps the fishery going, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
I don't know if it's really worked out. We're trying.
Yeah, okay.
It's really hard to regulate. So what they do is to enforce that, they have a scheduled opening system. They call it an emergency broadcast opening, where every day you're listening to the radio at 12.
Yep.
And they will come on and tell you what hours you can fish the next day, or even sometimes that same day. Like, you're waiting to hear, are we going out fishing in a couple hours or not?
Yep.
And the point of that is they think, like, if they are only telling you to fish during certain periods, then between the fish that get past your nets when you're fishing and then the fish that just get to go upriver without anybody fishing at all will get to the number that they want to see.
Yep.
Pretty regularly, they play it a little too careful and they get over escapement. They get too many fish going upriver, more than they want. I don't know if there are like real consequences from that or not, but every year it's like they're trying to hit this number. Like in our district, they really want to get like 1.5 million fish to go upriver. That's the most that they want, and they always get over that.
Yep.
Yeah, but they try. And so another thing that I think has changed over time is the hours that we fish have become more predictable.
Yep.
In our district, which is more consistent than the other districts in Bristol Bay, I think, we are pretty routinely open at the beginning of the season every other day, and then once it gets busy, every day.
Yep.
And it'll be like 10 to 12 hours as an opening on each open day, and that'll shift with the tides. The tides are like 45 minutes later every day, so our opening will usually be like 45 minutes to an hour later every day.
Yep.
And then the daytime tide from low to high is usually better than the nighttime tide. And I don't think it's because fish are, sleeping at night. It's because the tides at night are usually bigger because of the lunar effect,
Yep.
blah, blah, So we usually are fishing in the day. Sometimes we have to get up at 2 a.m. and set our nets out at 3 a.m. and that sucks. But for the most part, pretty predictable, good hours. I remember when I first started fishing, it was a lot more like you didn't know what was going to happen. You might get an 8-hour opening, and then they would come back on the radio and be like, hey, you're actually extended for 20 hours, so just stay out there, I guess.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it was kind of wild. And some districts are still kind of like that, which, I have no sympathy for, or I have lots of sympathy for them. I have, I don't think I would still be doing it if it was that way.
Okay.
That's kind of farther than I want
So,
to take it.
So, like, how ready do you have to be to go? Is it like literally waiting?
Not
and then we punch?
often. Usually they're telling you what's happening the next day. So you listen in at noon, and they'll say it's open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. tomorrow. So you have the rest of your day to prepare. And, we could be ready to go within a couple hours. The process of, like, getting your gear on and going out and getting your nets in place takes an hour to an hour and a half. So
yeah, okay.
It's
Is
not
that
bad.
coming from here to there, or you're
No,
already...
so we live out there. That's for that time we have a cabin on the beach. It's a pretty remote area.
Yep.
Takes if you do a direct flight from Anchorage, a couple hours to get there. No way to get there by road. Some people boat out there, but I think that takes a couple days.
Yeah, okay. Shit.
And
sick.
it's like we are close to a village called Pilot Point, which is a village of maybe 200 people. And during the fishing season, there'll be hundreds of boats in the river in that area, and probably maybe a couple thousand people living out there.
Yeah, right.
Don't quote me on that. I'm bad at estimating numbers.
It's
More
all right.
than would normally be living there.
Yeah.
And so yeah, like a small temporary kind of community grows for that fishing season.
Are they
And we're living out there.
shoplifters or rapists?
Fortunately, well, no, arsonists actually. There was a store and it got burned down. And then there was another store and that one got burned down. And now there's a store that has not been burned down for the past few years.
Yeah,
so.
okay. That's weird, because you'd get to the town where the number one crime is arson, and you'd be like, this is a pretty bad town. And then they're like, wait till you hear what the next town does.
You might want to stay here.
Yeah.
Just don't open a business and
Yeah,
you're fine.
at least it's warm,
Yeah.
How long's the season? What time is that through?
It's technically open, I think, from early June to mid-August, about 2.5 months. We're out there for about 5 weeks.
Yep.
Because the really good fishing happens over the course of just 10 days to 2 weeks. It's pretty short when a lot of fish are coming through.
And that's all when the fish are going to freshwater to spawn, is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So with that, do you see many like bears coming in to feed on those salmon near the areas you fish, or?
We see a few, yeah. There's always a bear or two in the area.
Yep.
You don't always see it every year, but there's always a number of people who see it, and stories get shared around, like the bear ate my wheeler seat, or like the bear knocked my outhouse over. You know?
Okay.
And sometimes you get to see them if you're up at dawn or dusk. They might be around, and they don't really like actively fish, but they'll eat the stuff that washes up on shore for sure. And we're always filleting fish because we want to eat a lot of salmon while we're out there. So if you throw your guts right in front of your cabin, they'll come up and eat it when you're not looking.
Yeah, right. So when it comes to selling the fish, are you selling whole to the market, or?
Yeah, so we have there's a number of processing companies that will have a fleet of buyer ships that they contract with that come out to the district, and they're much bigger boats than the ones that we're fishing in.
Yep.
And they'll just basically they'll park in the water, like deeper water than where we're fishing. And every time you pick your net, you go over one of these boats and they pull the whole fish off and they weigh it and they write you a ticket. And then at the end of the season, you get sent a check for everything that you sold to them.
Yeah, okay.
But you don't know what the price is until the end of the season. So that's one thing that's kind of crazy about it.
Yeah, that's insane.
We're just hoping it's going to be good.
who decides on the price?
People
they're selling
the
to?
market,
Yeah.
scare quotes. I don't know. Like all the buying companies are kind of just like waiting for another buying company to declare what their price is going to be, so they can sort of follow suit. I mean, it's kind of a price fixing scam to some extent. Usually, the price is like reasonable.
Yeah.
It probably should be higher for our end of the production line, because ultimately this fish is selling for. In the case of like good king salmon, selling for like $25 a pound in some places.
Yep.
Maybe more. And we're getting paid usually like for sockeyes, or that's red salmon, another name for him is sockeye. We're getting paid anywhere from like 50 cents in a bad year to like $1.50 has been the best price in recent years.
Yeah, shit.
Yeah. So way less than people are paying in the supermarket for it.
Yeah, I think that's even bigger markdown than our pro fishery. Yeah,
I believe that.
I think so for something like a red emperor, that's $13 a kilo whole off the boat. I think it's still about that. Could be at about $15 now, and $80, sold. So, yeah, I think that's filleted. So
Okay,
that's an insane markdown.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, is there any times where you're like, yeah, we've had a good season, and then that price comes in, and you go, this has actually been shit?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what happened 2 years ago. That part of the market has its own kind of boom and bust cycle, and it got hurt pretty hard by the COVID pandemic.
Yep.
So the year of COVID, we had a pretty decent year, and I think the price that year was okay. It was either that year or the next year where there was a big drop off because lots of restaurants across the country and beyond the country, not all of our fish goes to America. Some of it goes to like Europe and other places. But anyway, lots of places that buy fish, their freezers were still full of fish from the previous year because they weren't able to sell anything.
Oh, yeah, right.
So they didn't need to buy more, which meant that our buying companies weren't able to sell more, which means they had to give us a lower price. So there was a big crash in our price a few years ago. And we had 1 year where we caught a lot. For us, a good season is catching 100,000 pounds. That's kind of the goal that we try to reach. And we got like 110,000 or something 1 year. But the price was 60 cents or something, maybe less than that. It was pretty bad. It's been getting a little bit better. Last year was 80 cents maybe. But we also had a lower catch. So anyway, the whole system is frustrating that you don't know what price you're going to get paid.
Yeah, for sure.
In the old days, I've heard stories about this from my dad. I've never experienced this, but apparently back in the 80s, you would sell and you would get paid from the boat while you were each sale.
Yep.
I think a lot of times in cash. They would just like pay you right there.
No.
They had a price, and they were like, here's your cash. Also, here's a case of beer. They were just giving beer out while you're fishing. Just take some.
Yeah. So
that was fun.
According to the tax man, your dad wasn't fishing.
No. All the tax people who would care about that are retired or dead by now.
Yeah.
So he made a clean getaway.
Yeah. I think that's the entire fishing industry from like the 80s all around the world. Just, no, we weren't actually selling them.
We didn't catch anything today, actually.
Yeah. No, that's unreal. So, like, through that time, obviously, you're out there. Do you get to do much other fishing, or do other people that sort of around that area get out to fish, or it's just we're here to work?
Sure. For me, I treat it like I'm there to work, and when I'm not working on the boat, I like to relax and, like, read books or whatever.
Yep.
Other people want to do more stuff. A lot of times the people going out there, might be like a unique experience for them. We have crew hands sometimes that have never been way out there, so they want to go explore the tundra. There's some lakes near-ish us where you can pike fish, and that's pretty fun. And then if you were to go out into deeper water from where we are, you could probably fish for halibut, maybe some other things, but it's primarily a salmon area.
Yep. Yeah, right. So what sort of the upper end of the size salmon that you get, or are they all fairly around the same sort of mark?
There's a little bit of a range with the reds. A small one will be 4 pounds. A big one can be like 10 or 11 pounds. I don't know what that is in kilos. Sorry. You're in the US of A now, so we're not using your metric system.
Well, we sort of use both
Okay.
for something. So it's 2.2 pounds to a kilo.
Okay.
So, yeah, 12 pounds is about 5 kilo.
Okay, gotcha. Average size for a salmon is like 5 or 6 pounds, they usually say. So 3 kilo? Something like that? 2. Okay.
Yeah. 2.5.
All right. Well, I'm not a professional mathematician. So.
That's all right. I'm probably just making all of this shit up. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, right. So is that... So which is the plan with comedy to get away from the fishing or to be able to do both?
I don't know. So
I want to do comedy to bears. That's
Yeah.
my lifetime goal.
You should.
And then if they don't like it, punch a bear in the face.
Well, you heard about the Grizzly Man documentary
Yeah.
that Cass was talking about on the bus yesterday, right?
Yeah, go.
That guy was doing comedy to bears.
Yeah, so go through that. I think.
Yeah.
Like I'd heard about it before, but
Okay. I grew up hearing about this guy, so I thought this was like common knowledge everywhere.
yeah,
I didn't realize this was just kind of a local celebrity kind of thing. There's this guy named Timothy Treadwell who was from New York originally, I think, and then ended up moving to California, I think. I don't know. The point is he was a bit of an odd duck.
Yep.
And got it in his head that he could go out into a Katmai National Park where like the biggest brown bears in the world are. And he thought he could like go out into their environment and live close to them and like become their buddies and hang out with them and pet them and feed them and all this stuff.
Yep.
And he went out there he would live there for weeks at a time every summer for years. And he got away with a surprising amount. He was very close to these bears and he filmed a lot of it because he was a attention whore.
Yep.
And eventually he was out there one year and he was there at a bad time. He stayed too late to the point where the bears were trying to store up for the they were really hungry.
Yep.
And when they're at their hungriest is when they're at their most dangerous. And then he was also
Same as women, I've found.
well, fortunately, you know, I don't know. I don't know anything with that. Cut that. I should not go anywhere near that.
Yeah, leave that to me.
Yep.
But I'm just saying it's better to keep them fed.
Sure. Well, Timothy Treadwell found out the hard way. There was a bear got into his tent. He was staying out with his girlfriend one year, and bear got in and ate them both. And his camera like turned on, or he turned it on while he was being eaten. I don't know.
Or the bear turned it on.
Maybe the bear was like,
yeah, my
"This
turn,
is what'll
bitch."
happen." Yeah.
Yeah, this is my ending of the documentary.
Yeah. The bear heard about YouTube and was like, "Maybe this is my chance."
Yeah, well, it worked.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he filmed his own death, but he got eaten and his missus as
Yeah,
well. didn't
both
he?
of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I can't remember the story of how it unraveled, people finding out that it had happened, but a couple days later, maybe people came out to see their camp, and it was clear they had been eaten. Like the camp was destroyed, and there was viscera and stuff. And then eventually, they found the bear with like people in it. And the footage, I think, has been under lock and key. Like it's not footage that you can access. I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
But it exists.
It exists somewhere.
Yeah.
And then the other story we got told that you might be able to enlighten me on more, because it doesn't sound true, and there was a disclaimer that it might not be true, was if you walk out on the mud flats here, you get stuck, because it's like, which I understand looking at it. But the story is that a lady did that, got stuck, squirmed, got like buried to waist deep or something, and then they tried to pick her up with a helicopter, and they pulled her in half.
Mm-hmm.
That
is the story.
Yep.
I sincerely have no idea if it's true or not.
Yeah, okay.
I think it's like it's really just it's like a test of what you're willing to believe or not, I think, is the function of that. Like, some people believe it, some people don't believe it. It's like,
I just, it seems like at some point you just stop with the helicopter and find another way.
Well, they can't hear her saying stop. They're up there in the helicopter. They're thinking it's going great.
Well, except she obviously isn't coming up.
Yeah.
And old mate's just like, give her more gas.
Yeah.
I guess. Like at some point, you're probably using too much drag.
Yeah.
Just lighten off your drag a little bit. Let her run.
Well, they know that now.
Yeah. Well, that's it. It does take busting one off to find out the hard way. But yeah.
That is the story that all Alaskan kids are told, or at least in Anchorage.
Yep.
To warn you to not go out there.
Yep.
And it's worked for all of us. But every year there's someone, usually not a local, who tries to walk out there. There's usually a death, like every year or every other year. Someone gets caught out there because the water, the tide just comes in so fast out there.
Yep.
It's like faster than most people realize. So if you go out there and you get stuck, you could get out if you didn't have time working against you. But you'll get covered in water in an hour or so.
Yeah, I did say the warning for that for fishing here. I haven't been able to fish because it's the wrong time of the year. But yeah, I did say that a lot of the tackle shops and that tell you not to do that because it will happen. So,
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad they're warning people.
well,
It's getting through to most of them.
yep. Yeah. So, like, obviously you got the fishing here and stuff. Do you do any of the hunting or, like, I don't know, I'm going on Saturday for a boat tour looking
cool.
for whales and stuff like that. Have
Yeah.
you seen much of that? Like, have you seen the orcas come through?
I don't know if I've seen orcas here ever, but you can see belugas
Yep.
out of Anchorage in Cook Inlet area sometimes, and like, I don't know, gray
Grey
blue,
whales?
pink.
Yep.
I don't know, other kinds of whales.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know what they are, but you can see whales out there.
Yeah, okay. Do many of them get beached around here with those tides and the...
Not a lot. We did have one notably this winter, though.
Yep.
It was a pretty big deal. There was a lot of people going out to look at it. Parts of it might still be there. I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
It was out of downtown Anchorage. I haven't heard about it in a while, but it happened in December, maybe.
Yep. Do you get the sharks feeding on them here? I don't even know what type of sharks
I don't know if
you
we have
get.
sharks. We probably have some kinds.
Yep.
In fact, we do. I've caught some before while halibut fishing. But they don't cause a ruckus.
Yep.
They haven't been trouble.
Yeah, okay.
There's no Timothy Treadwell for sharks.
Yeah, yeah. That's interesting. Because, like, if a whale washes up where I'm from, it's just shark central. You get the tiger sharks feeding on them and...
Even while it's beached, like when the water comes in, they come in the shallows and eat it, or...
Yeah, normally when they die, so if they're beached and they haven't pulled them up or out to sea yet, the sharks will come right in and, almost beach themselves to feed on the whale. And then, yeah, we're similar in that we have big tides as well. So the whales tend to get beached, like 50 metres offshore sort of from the high tide mark, but still be mostly out of the water.
Yeah.
And then, the tiger sharks especially will come right in. So you'll see like half their backs out of the water and stuff.
Yeah.
So people come to say that. But, yeah, I did see when I was coming here there were a lot of spear fishermen and stuff like that spear halibut. So, yeah, that'd be good knowing if the whale comes in there's not sharks. So you'd be pretty good on that.
Yeah.
The main thing you'd have to worry about is the cold, but
Yeah.
yeah, right.
And then so we've had a couple whales wash up where we fish out in Bristol Bay.
Yep.
And the bears will come out and check them out. They don't. I think they get tired of eating them after a little bit, but they'll try it.
Yeah.
They'll eat some.
Yeah, right. That's interesting because you'd think just being all fat and that'd be perfect for
Yeah, I don't know why they don't stop, or I don't know why they stop eating it. It might just be that it. Yeah, I have no idea. They'll also eat seals if seals wash up.
Yep.
They'll eat that to the bone.
Yeah. Are the locals...
They like the bones too, probably.
Yeah. Are the locals allowed to club seals here?
I don't know if they club seals.
Yeah.
Maybe. I'm not sure what the method is, but they do hunt seals and whales and walrus and all those things.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Do you get to see any of that, or?
I have not seen any. I don't know if much happens out of Anchorage, but in some of the villages in the coastal areas, I'm sure you could see it if you want to. And there's stories like, so a friend of mine who's a comic, he worked for Wells Fargo for a number of years. And one time, some of the executives of the state Wells Fargo branches or whatever, they were going up to one of the villages in northern Alaska to close this like really big deal with some of the locals up there. It was like a big enough deal that the heads of the bank were going up there to close it. So they fly into this town and they land, and like there's nobody in town. They like can't find anybody.
Yep.
And they're just like, it's like a ghost town. There's like, where are all the people? And then they do finally find someone, and the person's like, yeah, they got a whale. So everybody's out. Everyone's out pulling the whale out of the water, and they're going to be carving up the whale for a couple days. So they just ignored this meeting they had with the bank guys.
Yep.
And the bank guys just had to go home and like try again another time, because it's a big deal. If the whale comes in, like, everybody drops what they're doing.
Everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then just chop it up. And if you flew in, would you be allowed to eat that whale if they?
I think so. I mean, it would be legal. So stuff like ivory and eagle parts, and other protected indigenous animals, you are allowed to own them as a non-native person, but only if they're gifted to you by a native person.
Yeah, okay.
So you can't just go out like. You can buy them if you're buying them from a native person.
Yeah, because I think I've seen them in shops.
Yeah, so what a lot of shops do is they do it on commission. So it'll be like owned by a native person, and then they'll give it to the shop, and the shop sells it, but like some or most of the money goes to the native person that owned it.
Yeah, okay. That's pretty cool. Because I know it's weird, because in Australia we got rules like that similar. Like if you're an indigenous person, you can hunt dugong and stuff like that, but it's very much hidden sort of thing. Like no one really talks about it. You don't see videos of it and stuff like that. And so stuff like that would probably be able to be sold, and that like they're not allowed to do any of that. And then as far as like a non-indigenous person being able to eat dugong, like lots of people that have done it, like where an Aboriginal person's cooked it up for them or whatever, but I don't know whether that is even legal. Okay. It's just everyone just pretends like it doesn't happen, sort of thing.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, no, I don't think there are any laws around eating.
Yep. I
think there are a lot of native dishes that non-native people wouldn't want to eat, because there's stuff that's just like, I mean, there's stuff where like you will take an animal and just bury it underground and let it rot, and then you pull it out later and eat it.
Yeah, right.
And like,
that's how
to someone whose palate is accustomed to that, it's like, to someone who's like eaten that their whole life, it's delicious. But if you've never eaten that, it's probably gonna be like,
I suppose it's like sauerkraut or something. You explain that to non-German people. That
why would you do that?
Shit. Yeah. Well, there you go. I have been having the squid at a lot of places here. Everyone, I'm not sure if it's because they cook it so well, or whether the squid here is just better from being in the cold, but it's amazing.
That's interesting. I never heard that.
Yeah. Do you know much about the squid fishery here?
No, nothing.
No.
So I actually probably should have mentioned this earlier. I don't eat meat.
Oh, right. Yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah, I eat fish, but I stopped eating squid and octopus because it's just so smart, Yeah. I just feel bad. I don't like to eat something that's smarter than me.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to eat anything, though. I wouldn't be able to eat a carrot. Yeah. So it limits it too much for me. Yeah, right. No, it's very interesting just to see how everywhere else works. Like, even the quota fishing and that, like maybe they try that in Anchorage for the rapists, like only certain hours of the limits. Day. Yeah, and then it lowers it.